Can I ask the three of you about this term unlawful combatant? Because that's another one that's part of the show language. As I understand it, doesn't mean anything.
No.
But it's a wonderful word because it suggests that they're somehow doing something wrong in fighting.
It's like guerrilla. I mean, I've only seen unlawful combatant. The BBC never uses the word guerrilla or freedom fighter, because you get this great long hereditary. If you think there's lots of words which tries to define people, if I'm, define people as something. So I think it is an odd word, but I think it's the son of a set of weasel words which attempt to define people who use violence you don't like.
And it also keeps them beyond the root
Beyond,
law. I mean, to begin
absolutely.
with, the reason it was invented was so that they wouldn't be POWs. So that, so that they could,
Exactly.
and they were held in Guantanamo Bay because in Cuba somehow it wouldn't apply. And that was the case for a while until there was a court hearing which said actually, they did have habeas rights.
Can I ask about reprieve in particular? It seems to me that should there or shouldn't be torture is a sort of question for your dinner party. But that it's almost like torture is a fact of life, and torture is also one of our favourite metaphors in communication. That an outfit like Reprieve is like sort of torture watch. It's a sort of we can't end torture. It's too much of a mote in human nature. But is there a sense that it can be better observed or moderated? I mean, I suppose that's crackers.
Well, I think there are a number of answers to that. The first one is that one of the reasons that we go up against America and England, and everybody kind of goes about, why on earth don't you go and play with Egypt, torture people? And the first answer is we're based in the West, so we won't do that. The second thing is there really genuinely is, I think, a position with people looking to America for not necessarily the lead, but I know of a barrister who was talking to a third-party country, which will remain nameless, but was in the third world, where he said, no, you can't do that, it's unlawful, and the lawyers said, but America does it, so why, how on earth can we now be told not to do it? And I think there is an element of that. And I think it kind of is torture watch in a sense. I think we can at least try to get the US and European governments to say that it's a bad idea, which they did not so long ago. The US was absolutely the vanguard of all of those conventions which said that torture was a bad idea. And I mean, the way that we operate is we have clients, which sort of differentiates us from other human rights organisations, and that's incredibly useful because you can hold up a 14-year-old boy and say, this boy should not have been, and actually the way that we tend to do it is via the media.
But who pays the 14-year-old boy's legal fees?
Philanthropic people like yourself.
Right.
No,
I'm fascinated.
The answer is we are very small. We pay people very little. We have some wonderful donors, and we have wonderful lawyers who do work either pro bono or with legal aid, because all of the cases that we bring generally are of significant public interest, and that's one of the legal aid requirements. Or one of the legal aid kind of ways in which you can get money.
Broadcast will destroy that as well.
No, actually, we're one of the few people who are still doing okay on that. But yes.
Obama's got great publicity saying Guantanamo Bay is going to be closed down, but he's actually planning on putting distributing these prisoners around in military bases around the country, where they're going to be subject to no civil law whatsoever. And,
just to go back to the previous question about unlawful combatant, suggested by Philippe Sands that in fact there was considerable lengths to which the Bush administration went in the run-up to the notorious Rumsfeld memorandum of 2002 authorising basically so-called enhanced interrogation techniques that people in the Office of Legal Counsel, John Yu and Bybee, were really concerned to show how you could sort of navigate around Common Article 3 of the Geneva Conventions, so that both the Taliban and Al-Qaeda would not fall within its remit. Al-Qaeda because they were not located in a single sovereign state, and they therefore were held not to be eligible for protection under the Geneva Conventions, and in the case of the Taliban, because although they were an Afghan outfit, they didn't wear insignia. So, on one count or the other, they were denied unprotected. That's, I think, against the, it's fair to say, against the general run of legal opinion on the issue. But, yeah.
And just kind of, what you were saying is, I mean, it's extremely worrying. I mean, we had a party in the office, you'll be unsurprised to hear, when President Obama was inaugurated, and actually I had a slightly terrifying telephone call from one of our funders in America who said, well, surely we don't need to give you any money anymore because you're redundant. And I sort of, and I persuaded them to wait for 6 months and see whether we were still redundant, and we're not. And you're absolutely right. I mean, first of all, there's Bagram, which has 600 or so people in it. Conditions are worse than they are in Guantanamo. They don't have lawyers. It's much more dangerous for us to go there, etc., etc. And that's the one we know about. There are quite a lot in Afghanistan and Iraq that we don't know about, and also things like prison ships. There are ships around the place. It's Dickensian with people in. So there are those ones, but also, as you say, the people who are being transferred within America, it's worrying. He is now starting to talk about indefinite detention, and we haven't got trials in federal criminal courts. We've got trials in these new security courts, which I'm sure will be slightly better than the military commissions, but are still going to allow evidence obtained via torture, essentially because otherwise important people might get off, which, you know, you can have some sympathy for, but it doesn't bode well.
I think I'd like to thank, I mean, I think it's been fantastic. I'd very much like to thank you. And I'd very much like to thank both of us. It's absolutely tremendous, lots of things to unpack. And I'm very, very grateful on a Saturday afternoon.